Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the graduated Kumihimo Bracelet kits by Beadaholique. Now I want to start by showing you the color patterns that we have available for you. So this is a graduated pattern, so it goes from one color to a second color, and you can see that it's a nice sort of random pattern there. So this one is the Creamsicle. We also have the Luxe version here, which is a beautiful teal to gold. And then we have the Beachside version, which goes from a beautiful coral to a turquoise. And in this video, as you can see, I'm going to be doing the Nautical version. So that's going to be that beautiful blue and white. Now in your kit, you will receive your disc, your clasp, your cord, your seed beads, your E6000 glue, and your bobbins. What you'll need to provide yourself is a pair of scissors or snips, a Kumihimo weight, and you can always make your own if you don't own one of these gator clips, and you will also need a ruler. Now, if you're familiar with our kits, you might know that we do refill kits, and what that means is that you can purchase one full kit and you'll get everything, or you can purchase a refill kit and that will only give you the clasp, cord, and seed beads of your choice. Because we know that you already have that disc, you'll have plenty of glue to work with, and you already have your bobbins. So there's no extra added bulk, which is actually a really great thing. So if you wanted to get one full, and then you can get other refills, so you can make multiple colors. So, all right, so let's assume you have everything ready to go. Let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so the very first thing we want to do is we want to get our cord set up. So let's go ahead and take our cord here. And what I recommend doing is we're going to do 4 lengths of 8 feet each. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And then I'm just going to use this as a guide to cut the rest of my cord. So I'm just going to kind of draw it along the side there and it'll kind of unravel itself. So I'm going to continue to make 4 lengths total. Okay, so gather up all 4 cords together. And what we're going to do is we're going to find those ends, kind of put them together there and just run it all the way down, because what we're looking for is that midpoint on all 4 of those cords, just like that. All right, so now go ahead and take it, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do a nice overhand knot and just sort of bring that through. Just getting all 4 loops there, and go a little bit bigger. There we go. And just pulling that through. Just a very simple overhand knot. Don't worry, it doesn't need to be pretty. This will get cut off later. All right, so now we have a nice little spot to use our gator clip when we are ready to clip that on. So the next part here is we are going to thread it down through the center of our Kumihimo board. And now we are going to separate out each cord, and you're going to put them on either side of each of the little dots there. So just kind of separate them out wherever they want to go. You can kind of let them talk you through. Sometimes we don't want to cross over too much, although it doesn't really matter. We're going to kind of braid this out. So just sort of set them into those little spaces there on either side of the dots all the way around the board. Okay. And my Kumihimo disc here is nice and fresh, so everything is nice and tight. If you do a lot of Kumihimo, this is something that you might need to replace as you work, because sometimes these can get a little, worn out, but that could take many, many Kumihimo bracelets, so you should be all good with your brand new one here. All right, so now what I want to do before moving on here is I want to talk about the pattern that we're going to develop on this board. So going around, you have 8 warps, 8 cords there. So we are going to actually number them. And I've done so on my little bobbins here. So you can see I've just used a little bit of masking tape to just mark a little number 1. And I've done that through 1 through 8 on all of my little things. You can use painter's tape, and just use a little pen or marker. You can always use a Sharpie if you want to permanently mark your bobbins. It's entirely up to you. But what I want that to correlate to is this cord right here between 31 and 32 is going to be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. And the reason that's important is because we want our pattern to show up like so. And if you go ahead and grab your pattern that came with your kit, you'll be able to see that we want to string our beads along that pattern there. So I'm going to take my number 1 cord here, which is the one between the 31 and 32. I'm just going to kind of move everybody else out of the way there. And then I'm going to come in, and this is where we're going to have a chance to talk about some sizing. So the pattern begins and ends with 4 of one color seed beads and 4 of the other color seed beads. So it's going to start with 4 white in this case, and it's going to end with 4 blue. Now, the reason I did that is because I want you to be able to size your bracelet. So I'm going to bring my ruler in one more time, and I'm going to grab one of my other examples here and bring it in to show you. So if you look along my ruler here, mine is 7 inches. Now this is the pattern that you will get here, but you'll notice that that pattern is about 6 inches. Now I do want to let you know that your clasp will add an inch about, here I'll show you, it'll add just kind of a hair under an inch there, so you can just see just under an inch. So with that said, this is a technically 7-inch bracelet from end to end. However, because it is a thick braid, that inner diameter is closer to 6.25. Now, there are differences with the braiding that you do. You can have something be a little tighter of a braid. Sometimes your braid will be a little bit looser. So what I recommend is if you want a longer bracelet, just extend that little extra piece there. So you can see that first gold bead that comes in there. So this is those 4 beads. So that's what that looks like there. So that is just about a 1/2 inch. So if that helps guide you, however much longer or shorter you want your bracelet to be, take and use that as a guide, that every 4 beads you're going to add. So you might want to start with 8 of the whites or 6 of the whites and then end with the same number on the other side, so you have that nice even pattern, but that won't affect the main portion here. Okay, I hope that gives you a little bit of a guide. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to pick up that first row, and I'm going to do this one with you here. So we are going to pick up 4 white beads here. And here's a little extra trick, and I'm glad it kind of happened on my first one here. I have a little extra tail there, so I'm just going to snip that off. And what you can do is you can just sort of snip it at a little angle there, and it'll make a nice little sort of needle point for you to be able to pick up those beads easily. Because these are 8 OC beads, so you really shouldn't have any trouble picking these guys up. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And on my first row here, I'm going to go ahead and pick up 1 blue, 2 whites, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 blue. Oops. Come back. Here we go. All right, he's just gonna be over there now. All right, 1 blue. All right, so I'm going to pick up the rest of the rows. I'm going to show you what it looks like here in just a moment. Okay, so we have our first row completed, and this is 40 beads. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that end, and we're going to take our number 1 bobbin here, and just go ahead and pop that open, lay it inside, and we're just going to wind that bobbin all the way around, and just kind of capture that little cord there, make sure it's nice and tight, and just wind it up. And let that slide all the way down to the disc there. And then we're going to close our bobbin. You just kind of fold it in on itself. There we go. So 1 is completed. So now you're going to repeat with the other 8 cords here, following along with your pattern. Now, I know that it goes from one color to the second color, and that will be indicated on your individual instructions. If you would like to flip-flop those, you will still end up with a very similar pattern. Each bead is numbered, sort of correctly, so you'll be able to kind of make it your own. But just in case you want to make the exact one that you see in the example, that will be there for you. All right, so I am going to load up all of my bobbins, and then we are going to come back and we're going to start doing Kumihimo. Okay, so our disc is all ready to go, so go ahead and pick it up. The last thing we need to do before we begin our Kumihimo is go ahead and take that gator clip and go ahead and clip it. You can either clip it to the loops there, whatever feels secure, or you can clip it right to that knot there on the end. So then we're going to flip our disc over. Now, what I recommend is kind of holding it up, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of let mine fall down because I want you to be able to see the pattern that's going to be happening with this rotation here. So let me just kind of get everybody situated. So again, keeping in mind we have our numbered bobbins, what you're going to want to do first is you're going to start braiding without any beads. So the simple, so the simple Kumihimo will look like this. You're going to start in your left hand here with the one between the 16 and the 17. Go ahead and remove that from the notch. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring that up and over, and it's going to sit between the 30 and the 31. So go ahead and set that down just like so. And now we're going to do the 32 and the 1, and we're going to pick that up, and we're going to go down through the 14 and 15. So now what we're going to do is just give it a little 90-degree rotation there, and we're simply going to repeat that on the next side. So up between 24 and 25, and bring it over between the 6 and the 7, and set it in there, and then again between the 8 and the 9. So this is your Kumihimo, and now you just continue to rotate and bring it around to the other side. All right, so I'll show you one more time. We just take that, and it doesn't matter. The numbers will change, but the braiding will not. And one more. There we go. Rotation. Okay, now if you ever find that you need to put your Kumihimo down, you need to remember your place. So go ahead and start one by taking one and moving it up to the side there. That way, if you start with 3 up and 1 down, you know exactly where you're going next. So you can come to this cord here and go ahead and bring that down. So I'm going to braid my whole inch there, and then I'll be right back to show you how to add those beads. Okay, so you can see down there in the center that I have my braiding, and you can see it's really nice and tight. That's what we're looking for. So I want to point out something that I want you guys to really take to heart so that this pattern comes out for you. So I am at a different point in the disc. I've kind of woven all around, and now I'm getting ready to add the beads. I have enough cord there, and that's just kind of how I judge it. As long as I have enough there, I can make it work. But I am back to my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my bobbins, and this is why those numbers are important. So now we're going to take bobbin number 6, and this is where we're going to start to add our beads. So when I get down to this point, I'm going to go ahead and take that out and let that bead slide all the way down. Now what we don't want to happen is we don't want that bead to come up and over across. So what you're going to need to do, and sometimes you might need to help it here on these first few rows, you want it to catch underneath that cord that's coming out to the side here. You can see that it's sort of caught. It's almost at like a little angle there. That's what we want. We don't want our beads to pop up and over. So now every time you pick up a cord, go ahead and just kind of let one bead slide down, and again, not like this. We want it to catch underneath that cord that's right there, and you can kind of help it along and push down. All right, and now continue to rotate, and we're just going to do the same thing again, and I'll show you how this starts to develop here. So you should be on your number 8 bobbin now. So go ahead and release that cord, slide that down, and then let it kind of, you can see I'm just kind of helping it with my thumb. And now here's where you want good tension, but we don't want to pull too tight because we don't want that bead to go up and over. And that is how easy this part is. So all you're going to do is you're going to add all of your beads just in this same manner, just continuing to rotate, continuing to do that beautiful braid. And then when you are ready, you are just going to, as though the beads were never there, you're just going to continue your Kumihimo, and you are going to finish with 1 inch of that cord like we did in the beginning, because that's going to go into our clasp so we can tie it off. All right, so I will see you on the other side when it is ready to add our clasp. Go ahead and do all of your Kumihimo, and I'll be back here to show you how to finish it off. Okay, so by now your Kumihimo is all finished and should look like this. So let's go ahead and remove that gator weight. You can set him aside. We don't need that anymore. And then go ahead and take your scissors and just cut off all of those without your magnetic clasp attached. And go ahead and just cut off all of those bobbins there, and you can just set all of those aside. You want to give some nice tails here, so cut as close to the bobbins as you can. And two more over here. All right, perfect. So now go ahead and kind of come up through and just go ahead and pinch that. And we're just going to pull those cords out and remove them from our disc. Set our disc aside. We are done with that. Go ahead and gather all of those cords together. And we're just going to create a nice overhand knot, just like so. And making sure it kind of sits right at the top of our braid. Don't worry if it's pretty, we're cutting it off anyway. All right, so now this is the braid that we should have all finished and ready to go. So for the clasp, two things. One, go ahead and separate it to the sides. We want to leave our piece drying so it's unclasped, because sometimes that little glue can seep through there, and if you let it dry while it's clasped, you can actually glue it together. So we want to avoid that. So that's just my little reminder to set them aside. Okay, so we're going to be using some toothpicks here. You can also use just a scrap of wire, whatever it is, and that's going to help us with that glue. But because the well of our clasp is a little large to fit over this nice thin braid we have here, we're going to need to bulk up that end. So we're going to take one of our bobbins and just kind of undo it. And we're going to actually use this little scrap piece. So this is going to be a perfect length. It's just a couple of feet there. And before we get to the gluing, go ahead and take that, come in here, and leave about 6 inches on one side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tie a little overhand knot there and bring that as close as we can to the base of our beads. We want to make sure that we're not catching any of our beads there. Perfect. And now we're just going to tie a double knot just for a little extra security. I'm always a double knotter. All right. So now take the little side and go ahead and kind of fold that up along the braid there. And now we're going to take this longer side, and what we're going to do is we're just going to wind it around our braid, and we're going to go up about the length of the well of our clasp. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that you can just keep winding and winding. Make sure you're not catching any of those beads. You can tell mine really wants to there. So you can just take your clasp and kind of eyeball it. The edge of your clasp is only really about, even less than 1/4 of an inch there at the top. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're going to get it all sort of bulked up so that it's going to fit in there. So you're just kind of winding it around. Again, this does not need to be pretty. We are going to add glue and get rid of this guy anyway. All right. So just keep on winding there. You can just see that I'm trying to just wind it really, really tight. I'm really holding that with my fingers. Okay, so that looks good. So now what I want to do is I want to take that end, and I'm going to take the end that I was working with there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of hold that really tight and make a little knot and kind of bring that down as close as I can to my kind of big bulk section right there. Perfect. All right, and then, of course, you know me, I'm going to double knot that and secure it. Okay, so now what I recommend is you do this on the other side before you move on, but I'm going to go ahead and do it all here at once. So go ahead and now take your E6000. Your glue's going to be fresh, so go ahead and just poke it on the edge there of your glue cap. And go ahead and squeeze a little bit out onto your work surface. And we want to keep it from drying up, so go ahead and close that up. Now what we want to do is kind of just drag our toothpick around. You can just see that I'm kind of just twirling it there. This has a really kind of stringy glue. So what we want to do now is we want to set it down into the well and just sort of maneuver it around into the well of our little clasp there. We want to kind of get it down into those corners. We want to make sure we have a really nice strong bond, so you can kind of see what I'm working with there. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to grab just a little bit more of a dab, and I think I'm just going to set that down right in the center. So you can see I'm just kind of twisting my toothpick as I take it out. Okay, so now that is all set to go. So in one kind of step here, I'm going to snip off these little ends, just like so. There we go. And I'm going to snip off, and you kind of have to saw this one because the braid is really thick. Now, very quickly, you want to just kind of dip it in the glue just at the very end there. We just want to seal that little end piece. And now we're going to put it into our clasp. But as you do this, what I recommend you do is kind of just slip it on, but sort of twist it around and kind of let that glue get all in there. We really want to make sure that it's really forming a tight little bond. Don't worry if you have a little bit on the outside there. You can see next to my finger I have just a little bit. You can always just kind of pull that off. This glue is very forgiving, which is lovely, until it is dry, and then it is nice and solid for you. All right, so that is one side. I'm gonna do the other side because I want you guys to be able to see what this is gonna look like. All right, so we have our beautiful bracelet all set to go. Remember to let it dry, kind of laid out like this, but I just wanted to show you all 4 colors together there at the very end. So we have 2 silver, 2 gold, some beautiful colors for you to choose from. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can get all of these exclusive kits and even more kits by heading over to Beadaholique.com.